Welcome back, Torah fans, to our special series for the Fall Feast. We are going to talk about Sukkot with our special guest, Joel Richardson. Welcome back, Joel.
Good to be back, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Now, I have to point out something on your shelf there because you have a company that you've created called Wine Press Media. Where is the wine press on your shelf there?
Thanks for pointing it out. Yeah, so I just got this. I'm so excited. Actually, let me do this a little bit just so you can see the whole thing. So I just got this on eBay. And it's an old, sort of antique wine press. It was cheap because it's broken. But this is actually, if you can see it, this is my my imprint for my books. It's been Wine Press, which is a great title, right? Jesus treads the wine press of the wrath of God Almighty. And my message really centers around the return of Jesus. So I got the wine press from my studio here. I'm real excited about it.
Well, and right underneath it is a skull with a nail through it, which is reminiscent of Yael, I guess, of the story of her in the Bible.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the story, by the way. I see if I can find it, but so some of the pictures in the book are a little bit violent, I guess, because again, it's the skull crusher, but I've actually got a picture of Yael. Oh, I'm not going to find it anyway, with the spike up. So I have to share this because it's real fun. So I actually carved this skull out of walnut myself.
Oh, wow.
I've gotten into wood carving. So I saw this T-shirt on eBay, and it has on Etsy. Someone made this T-shirt. It's a skull, and it's got a big spike going through it, kind of like that. And then it has some flowers around it because it's a female shirt. And then underneath it says "Biblical Womanhood." And
that's great.
It's great sense of humor. But and actually, I have to point this out because this is super cool. Is we know the story of Yael killing Sisera. Sisera is actually a type of the Antichrist. Later in Zechariah chapter 10, verse 3, Zechariah says this. This is what I call the prophetic hermeneutic, which is to say the method of interpreting that story by Zechariah the prophet. And so he says, for the Lord has visited, the Lord of hosts, the Lord of armies has visited his flock, the house of Judah. And he says, he will make them like his majestic war horse or his horse in battle. From them will come the cornerstone. From them will come the tent peg. So Zechariah, we know he's talking about the cornerstone is Yeshua, and then he calls Yeshua the tent peg. So he looks at that story and he says, the one that crushed the head of Sisera, he says, that was Yeshua. And that's just a super cool picture. I hadn't caught that until, I don't know, probably 2 years ago.
Interesting. I've never seen that. You always bring up the most interesting stuff from the Bible I've never seen. So that's why we like having you on. And speaking of a wine press, so, the skull crusher, right before the cameras came on, we discussed that, the skull crushing is not an instantaneous thing. It takes time, just like a wine press, right? You've got to press the grapes, take some time for the wine to form. So what do you mean that Yeshua being the skull crusher, why is that not an instantaneous thing? What's taking time here?
This is such an important point. It's a deep theological point. So all the way back in the garden at Genesis 3:15, the Lord makes the declaration to the serpent, like he curses him. He goes, you're gonna eat dust. You're gonna crawl on your belly. There's the humiliation back then, and he promises someone's coming. You're gonna nip at his heel, but he's gonna crush your head. And so, of course, that's a prophecy of the Messiah. Well, we all agree that at the cross, when Yeshua said, "It is finished," that is the moment when Satan's skull was crushed, so to speak. But it hasn't really been appropriated yet. Like that's when it was as good as done. It was sealed. Like we have the Holy Spirit now as a seal, as a deposit, as a guarantee, as a down payment. Likewise, at the cross, his victory was sealed and guaranteed, but it's not until Armageddon that Yeshua comes back and he actually kills the Antichrist. Satan is chained up, thrown into the abyss for 1,000 years. So we go, that's the next installment is at Armageddon. In fact, that's when what happened at the cross is actually appropriated. But then it's at the end of the millennium that he's let out, and that's when he's cast into the lake of fire. So the defeat or the crushing of Satan, it is a progressive thing that's actually been unfolding from the very beginning. But here's the good news. We know that according to the words of the prophecies, he came just as he said he would. He came once, he made atonement, he crushed the head of the serpent. We have confidence that he's going to come back and actually finish what he started. And so that Maranatha cry, it's come Lord Yeshua, but it's not just that, it's come back and finish what you started. Silence that prowling lion. We're tired of wrestling with him. Silence him once and for all, because our Christian brothers and sisters say we're in the millennium now, and I go, well, if Satan's chained right now, like, hello, have you looked at the rhetoric on social media lately? Like, I don't think Satan's chained, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no kidding. No, I would tend to agree with you there. That's crazy out there. And one of the first things that helped me to realize that the Torah needed to be part of my Christian faith was when I just sort of was flipping around Revelation and realized that phrase that Yeshua says on the cross, "It is finished." It's repeated 2 more times, at least that I found, in Revelation. And I kind of went, wait a minute, it is finished? Well, I thought it was finished over here. What do you mean it is finished, it is finished? So like you said, it's this expectation that we have for him to finish the job. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's why a lot of our Jewish friends say, well, he could not have been the Messiah because he didn't do it all.
Right. The Bible frequently uses present tense language, present tense verbs, to communicate future certainty. So, for example, all the way back in Isaiah, we're talking about the suffering of the Messiah, and it says, by his stripes we are healed. So you get a lot of charismatic Christians, and I believe in miracles and the gifts of the Spirit, but they'll say, no, I am healed now, because by his stripes we are healed, past tense. And I go, right now I'm looking at you and snot is running down your nose. You're sick right now. No, I don't confess that in Jesus' name. I don't confess that, because I'm already, no, look, when did that verse become true? Because it was prophesied hundreds of years before the cross. We weren't healed before the cross. So it's using present tense language to communicate. It's as good as done. It's guaranteed, but that does not mean that it's fully affected yet. And this is, look, we use this language all the time. You watch the football game, you're in the third quarter, you go, oh, we just lost. Well, we haven't actually lost yet, but we basically lost. And so you see this thing all throughout the Bible. We need to be careful not to interpret them in these rigidly hyper-literal ways. Recognize that the Bible uses a lot of figures of speech.
Yeah, that's why I think it's helpful for anybody who's a believer to know just a little bit about Hebrew, just to understand that, oh, this language is different than mine, and when it's translated into my language, now I understand why maybe there was some mystery around this. There really is no mystery. It was me not understanding Hebrew, and that really came to light when I learned Hebrew, gosh, when was that? Almost 20 years ago now, with my daughter, and she was only 7 at the time. Well, she kicked my butt. She understood everything right away. She's a little sponge, and she like really got on or clued into it. Anyway, but these teachers were a couple from Israel, and the way they even spoke in English to say something was going to happen or did happen, the word they use as a crutch was coming. This is coming to happen now. It's coming to happen then. It's like they didn't know how to do past tense or future. They kind of just kept it all in the present. And then just by listening to them, I go, oh, okay, this is what we see in the Bible a lot, where there's a present tense to illustrate something that's happening or has happened.
Yeah. The Hebrew verbal perfect tense, it can be translated past tense, present tense, ongoing, or future, any of the above. It's all contingent on the context. And, we don't have that in English, so that people do get confused.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and as far as being, confused about things, so when we're seeing that something has happened now and we don't get that it's a future thing, I tend to explain, Yeshua's second coming as a marriage, right? So right now, when Yeshua says, will you follow me? Well, that's a betrothal. The wedding supper of the Lamb, wedding supper, has not happened yet.
Right.
We will, like Michael says, we will be saved from the wrath to come. That is what we're being saved from. If you watch A Rood Awakening on YouTube, you may have noticed something new. This is our membership. This is 3 levels of membership that you can use to support the ministry. Just another way to support what we do here at A Rood Awakening International. First of all is being a Torah fan. By being a Torah fan, you can get some custom emojis with Michael Rood, as you can see there. Very entertaining emojis with Michael Rood, and of course some loyalty badges as well. Now, the next tier is being a Torah follower. This is kind of cool because if you can't watch Shabbat Night live, as soon as we make it available, you can have early access to our videos. So that is another perk of being a Torah follower. And the third and final tier is being a Torah warrior. You get everything from tiers 1 and 2, plus some custom, very exclusive videos only seen on the membership. So there you go, a new way to support Rood Awakening International. Go to YouTube and look for our membership. So now as we get into the fall feast now, Sukkot, how do you see this and how does that involve the skull crusher?
Yeah. So again, the divine mystery is, so when you look at the Exodus, the Lord is wooing Israel away from her old boyfriends, her old pagan false gods, by demonstrating how powerful he is with a mighty and outstretched arm, with a mighty hand and outstretched. He's doing miracles. He's reaching down from heaven. He's destroying. He's like, hey, can your old boyfriend do this? And then he rips the ocean in half, and then he drowns the boyfriend. So he's wooing Israel to himself, and then he demonstrates his compassion, water and quail and manna and all these things, right? But there's that language with a mighty hand, mighty arm, outstretched hand. Well, then you get to the passages in Isaiah that are called the songs of the servant. And we know, of course, Isaiah 53, but it's in that. It says, to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? So it's kind of building up and you go, oh, wow, the arm of the Lord, someone's about to get their butt kicked. Someone's about to get their tail handed to them. And then all of a sudden it goes, he grew up before him like a tender shoot. You go, what? And it's all about him being crushed and everything. So the divine irony is that it was through being overcome, through being crushed, through being mutilated, through being murdered, through being overcome, that Yeshua overcame Satan. How did he crush Satan's head? By allowing himself to be crushed. There's an amazing irony there. And so it's in that, again, Satan's future absolute complete defeat has been sealed. And, it's that divine mystery that the world does not understand the wisdom of God. And this is so important because we as his disciples are called to lay down our lives, to still embrace the cross. You have so many people today that think our job as believers is to conquer and take over America, and we're going to establish a Christian kingdom. No, he's promised us not a kingdom, but a cross. The kingdom comes after he returns, and that's Sukkot. It's when God dwells with us. His eternal purpose has always been to come down and dwell with us, but that can't happen unless he allowed himself to be crushed first. So at the end of the story, he looks, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. We know who that is. He's the conquering Messiah. And he goes, and then I looked and I saw a lamb as if slain. What gives him the authority and the right to be the Lion of the tribe of Judah? It's that he is the lamb that was slain. And that's always been the plan from before the foundation of the world. He essentially tricked Satan. Satan can't understand this, that it's through being overcome that he was defeated. It's a beautiful, beautiful narrative.
And it's full circle too. We've talked before about how Greek mindset says this happened, that's over. Now that happens, that's over. But Yeshua was, to our recollection, at least I believe it happened this way, he was born at this time of year as well, at Sukkot. So, because he came to dwell with his people, duh. First the physical and then the spiritual, if you will. It's got to happen both ways. And so I think it's a beautiful way of tying the story together. And I think it's so sad that a lot of our just Christian friends who didn't see the light, as it were, like we did, they don't see this. And that's why they don't understand that Yeshua wasn't born at Christmas. He's born at Sukkot. Then maybe they'd understand, the second coming a little better too.
Yeah. Look, the story starts in the Garden of Eden. God is walking in the garden. He's dwelling with Adam and Eve in perfect harmony. That's the beginning of the story, and that's how the story ends as well. New Jerusalem comes down out of heaven to the earth, and Yeshua is present. God's eternal purpose has always been to dwell with us. That's what Sukkot is. We're to camp outside, sleep outside, look up at the stars to remind ourselves that this current world, it's not our permanent home. We're looking for a better country, a heavenly one that's going to descend, and it's the restoration of Eden. So as you said, it's that full circle. The end of the book is a reflection, but I would say not just a reflection, it's an amplification. It's a new and improved Eden. It's much better. And then also just to tie in all the prophecies about David that we've already covered, when the Bible says, when Peter in Acts 3 talks about the restoration of all things, of which all of the prophets have been talking from ancient times, he's talking about two things: the restoration of Eden and the restoration of the throne of David. You mix those two things together and then just pour a whole bunch of caramel macchiato glory sauce all over it and stir it up, and you've just got this. That's what the prophets are describing: a glorified kingdom of David combined with the Garden of Eden in paradise. And that is our inheritance. That's our hope. That's our blessed hope. That's what we're looking forward to. But best of all, Yeshua will be present with us.
Yeah, it's a beautiful picture. And I just love that, how when Yeshua comes back, it's all even better. And he came back the first time, and even, he amplified things the first time too, right? You have heard it said this, but I tell you that. He wasn't contradicting. He was adding more explanation, maybe more understanding to something. And now it's going to be even done again to an even greater degree at Sukkot. All right, well, thank you very much, Joel. And we're going to see you next week. But before we do, there's the information on the bottom of the screen where you can get your book. Do you still have it handy sitting beside you there?
Yeah, I'm excited. Gospel of the Skull Crusher. And did I point out that I put a ribbon in it?
You did. It's a beautiful thing. Yes. Better than having a bunch of bookmarks laying around. If you want the book that looks like Joel's, when you buy it, you do have it, you need to take the cover off. Then it can look just like that.
Yeah, here's the actual cover. I like the linen, the old school, like an old Winnie the Pooh or Hobbit or something.
Yes, and a classic it will be. So there it is, the Gospel of the Skull Crusher. And again, it's great for Christian friends to read, right? Like, it's not full of Yeshua and Yehovah and weird words like this, right?
Yeah. I use like YHVH. So that's kind of used by a lot of scholars, for God, but that can be Yehovah. And I use Jesus. And, again, I've written this. I tried to aim for like a 17, 18-year-old readership level. This is the type of thing you can give to your Christian friends, your kids, to help them understand the overarching story and inoculate them against so many of the false doctrines that are exploding out there right now. It's like every heresy of the early church, it's all back in full force, and we need to be prepared.
Speaking of that, let's just talk about that for a second. Why do you think that is? I guess. I don't know. I guess the obvious target is October 7th. That's when it all started. All of a sudden, there were debate in the Christian church. Well, Hamas was right to do that. No, they weren't. Well, and a bunch of us rear our heads going, wait, what? There's actually debate about this?
It's demonic. Like, look, the spirit, I don't know how to explain it. The spirits of 3 unclean frogs have gone out in the earth and just taken over. Like, people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, but it's mainstream. Some of the most bizarre, like Candace is actually inferring that Jews are out there kidnapping children and drinking their blood, like blood libel, like some of the just stupidest anti-Semitic tropes. And again, all these false doctrines. I've been encountering people on Twitter regularly who are Marcionites. Like, they're actually rejecting the Old Testament. They're going back and reading the Gnostic books of Marcion, the early Gnostics, and embracing it. And I go, like, guys, this has been declared as heretical. And it's not just heretical, like, forgive me, but it's dumb. But I really believe that there's just like a demonic swirl that's sweeping throughout the earth. And even in the church, people are falling for all kinds of deception. So we need to be inoculated. We need to know the scriptures. We need to know the full story. Yep, indeed. And hopefully your book helps to do that outside of just reading someone's Bible and maybe getting the wrong idea or twisting it according to what they've heard on X or wherever else. So anyway, thank you, Joel. We're going to have one more of these next week to talk about Shmini Atzeret. In the meantime, enjoy Sukkot. Do your camping, whatever you're going to do. As Michael would say, that's ridiculous. Nobody in Israel thinks camping is the thing, but America, that's what we do. So anyway, we'll see you next week, and thank you again for joining us, Joel. God bless. Thanks again.